Hi. They're panicking. They are 100% freaking out. It's hilarious. I'm here for it. And I hope they're right. Welcome back to Far From Eden. Let's get into it.
If you're needing a divorce, you need to be getting on it ASAP. You need to be gathering your documents. You need to be gathering your evidence. You need to be gathering your money to get that ball rolling as soon as possible. Why? One thing that has not been discussed enough in this entire election cycle has been the conservative push to end no-fault divorce. So what does that even mean? So right now, if you're running a divorce, you don't have to go in and prove who was at fault to be able to be granted the divorce. If that is taken away, you now have to go in and prove why you should be given the divorce. So that means you're going to have evidence. You can't just go in and be like, he abuses me. That's not going to be taken seriously. You have to have provable evidence. And as anyone who has been in the court system with an abuser especially will know that even if you do have evidence, it's usually not given the weight that it should be given.
Okay, let me just say, abuse is wrong. I hate that we have to say that because you know how the other side attacks and says, and by other side, I mean women, I mean the left, it's all the same thing. If you haven't realized yet that feminism and the left is all the same, it's very difficult to separate all of it. I know that there are men struggling with dating, wondering why they're always having to pay or expected to pay. Why does she expect traditional customs, but she doesn't bring anything traditional to the table or anything at all? And that's where a lot of you guys are, and I understand, and that's a problem. But how do they get this mentality? They get it because the machine of the media, the propaganda fueled by the government, it's all one big conglomerate, has empowered them, enabled them, and brainwashed them to think that they are entitled to your resources. Okay.
Given. These courts do not handle abuse situations like they should, and this is going to absolutely devastate.
Should, meaning they should just believe what you say? That's what she's insinuating. They should just believe whatever the chick says. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. We've been down the road of believe all women, and we have come to the conclusion that, shockingly, women lie. People lie. Therefore, women lie. Now, we can get into who lies more, but that's really neither here nor there for this conversation. Women.
State women and children who are trapped in these abusive relationships. And the crappy thing is, most of the time, we do not realize our abusers are even abusers until they have us trapped by a marriage or by babies. And it is devastating. This is not me fear-mongering. This has been heavily discussed within the conservative platform this entire year. And as it stands, it looks like they're likely going to have both control of the Senate and the House. And this is terrifying. So if you are in a crappy marriage, if you are in a marriage that has domestic violence, you need to get on this as soon as possible. You don't want to make this process even harder for yourself than if you wait and some crummy rulings come through and make it to where you cannot divorce this man. If you're needing a divorce,
I'm sorry. On it. Cannot divorce this man. Hold on. Let me just give you a warning before this next quick video, because if I don't warn you, you're going to lose your lunch, breakfast, dinner, all of it. And we don't want that. So let's just, I never know. I'm terrible at using TikTok, and I'm glad of that. That just means that I don't use it very often now. I'm sorry. Here she comes.
Hey ladies, if you've been thinking about leaving your husband, you better do it now. They get rid of no-fault divorce, you're going to have a really hard time. Trust me, I've been through divorce, and it's not.
In related news, don't miss our grim Brothers fairy tale series. There are lots of evil stepmothers and witches in those fairy tales. You would be shocked at how prominently the female villain is displayed. Anyway, that just randomly came to my mind. Has nothing at all to do with what we're seeing right here. But I just thought I would remind you to take a gander at our fairy tale series where we do some literary archaeology and find all these interesting villains of the female type.
It's not easy, but no fault divorce at least makes it easier. By the way, look, I got gray hair for the first time. Actually, it's technically white. I just got it this week. I haven't had any gray hair ever. And now I have a bunch of hairs all in here. And even there, look at that. Look at that.
Lord.
I guess it was bound to happen. Thanks, Donald Trump. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. File for divorce stat. If you're thinking of leaving them, file now while you can. I'm serious. I'm not encouraging people who, are happy to not be together anymore. But if you want to leave, do it now while you can. For real. Good luck. Take good care. Bye-bye. Hey, ladies.
Okay. So now, why are they freaking out? Because JD Vance in particular has talked about no-fault divorce being an issue and the infamous 2025, Project 2025, whatever, that they all think, that the left and the Democrats all think Donald Trump is going to come in and implement. I guess one of the things in there says to end no-fault divorce. And so they're all freaking out because they think that's his secret agenda. And Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire trolled really bad and acted like it was real. He's joking around and he said, now we can go ahead with Project 2025 now. And they believed him. So these ding dongs. However, I am one of the ones of the opinion that I've read Project 2025, and I actually think looks pretty good. But that's me, and I'm not going to be president, and neither is the Heritage Foundation, which is a Christian think tank that came up with Project 2025. But these women are having a meltdown, and I actually hope it is one of the things that gets done, because having the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and the executive branch, if we can't get things done with that, I don't know what we can do. We should also get paternity tests. They should be mandatory after the birth of a child. Paternity test, mandatory, should check every time. There's so many things that, would be wonderful. And circumcision. There's just so many things that would be good for men. But today we're going to focus on no-fault divorce, because I'm sick and tired of women taking marriage so flippantly and then trying to make it about something that it's not. They're really just unhappy. This is a tantrum because they want to be able to divorce because they're unhappy. So here's our last interview, and then we're going to get into an article that was just released within the last 24 hours from the Washington Post on this topic.
There's all this talk about no-fault divorce coming to an end, like we see in this comment here. And I, for the life of me, cannot understand why people, particularly men, would want it to come to an end. Do you really want women, particularly or possibly your own wife, to be stuck in a marriage with you? Do you really want her to be held hostage, legally held hostage?
They don't even understand what marriage is. It is a promise. It is a vow through good times and bad. These people just operate based on their feelings of the moment. And when you are looking at marriage, marriage is for the rest of your life. You get married at, say, 25, which I personally think is too old, but whatever. You get married at 25, and the idea is you're going to be married for, at least 50 more years. You're going to have literally bad years in there where you're not getting along, where it's a struggle, where your circumstances are difficult, because people go through difficult times. But these women, they didn't set out for that to be the case. When these women made their vows, they weren't promising any of that. They weren't promising for better or for worse. They were just saying, yeah, I feel it right now. But if I change or you change or circumstances change, then the vows change. Therefore, it's not a vow. If you don't like that, ladies, don't get married. Now, just in case this is your first time here, welcome to Far From Eden. I never, ever suggest that men enter into some kind of government contract. Never enter a contract where the woman is rewarded for breaking it. I personally think that if you want to break up a marriage, if you decide that you're done, then you get to leave. You don't take anything, you don't get anything, you don't get the kids. You go. You take your happy little self and you leave. You don't get cash and prizes. You don't get 50% of everything accumulated during the time you're married. That's a lot of it those are his blood, sweat, and tears that he did for the family, for the marriage, not for you to take 50% and leave because you're not happy. And this is what the tantrum is about. Make no mistake, they're crying abuse, trying to make it seem like that's the majority, that's the real issue. And it's not. It's the same as the what did we decided to call it? Fetus deletus? The fetus deletus, they're always like, well, what about grape? What about incest? What about the 10-year-old? Like, they always take these extreme cases to make their point. This is no different. Make no mistake. So those of you men who have said, I'm not going to get married, no way, no way, you guys have been smart. Because this is who they are. They are showing you who they are.
By you. Do you really want to be married to a woman that doesn't want you? Married to a woman that possibly hates you, or certainly will hate you when she can't divorce you? I mean, really think about it. Who is it benefiting to get rid of no-fault divorce? What am I missing here? Do you really want to be forced to stay in a life with someone that doesn't want to be with you?
No.
How does that ever make sense? Even if you don't care about their happiness or if they're going to be miserable, they're going to make you miserable. I mean, if they don't want to be with you and they're stuck in a marriage with you, how do you think it's going to affect all other parts of the life that you guys?
If I can't get my way, I'm going to suffer. I'm going to make you suffer. I'm going to make everybody suffer. If I can't get my way, this is what I'm going to do. That's the translation of what she just said. Okay, witchy poo, let's continue.
Are you thinking that because she is now stuck, she's going to take a closer look at you and see what she really has? Absolutely not. Why do you want an indentured servant?
Why would you ever think that she has character and that she meant what she said when she said her vows? I'm just going to translate.
Do you think that she's all of a sudden going to find this attraction for you? She isn't. Why would you want to be stuck in a marriage with someone who finds your touch physically repulsive? Give me a good answer.
She's just trying to be her. She's giving you a sample. She's giving men a sample of of what their wives will feel or do feel. Okay, here's a controversial take. If you're a woman and you're starting to feel these things in your marriage, the problem is you. Once upon a time, you loved that man. You promised that you were going to be with that man forever. Stop looking at him thinking he's the problem. Start looking inside and thinking, okay, what do I have going on? Why do I expect him to make me happy? I'm just a negative person? You know what I mean? Maybe you externalize everything and you make everything out to be everyone else's fault. And he's an easy target because he's right there. And you're going to try to hurt him and tell him he's repulsive. Which?
There's all this talk
That was
about
the end.
no fault.
Oh, that's what she ended it on. Oh, you're repulsive. Okay, you know what? The feeling is mutual. Bye-bye. Bye-bye to you. So this is horrible because at one point in time, these women made a promise to the men. And then it's, however long later, they just start to say, oh, I'm not happy and this and that. And it's funny because it tends to happen around when it's interesting. I'm not a doctor, but it tends to happen around the time when fertility wanes. And that means perimenopause starts. Like around 38, 40, 42, like around that age. And they start feeling unattractive and they start being unhappy, not knowing how to, lean into the next phase of life. And they start, like the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings, their focus just like turns to the husband and it's all his fault. It's all his fault. It's all his fault. Anyway, the Washington Post has an article on this. And all I can think too is these women are admitting that most of the divorces are for no reason. Because no fault divorce means if there's fault, then you granted a divorce. It's not that hard to have proof of abuse. It's really not hard, especially with a cell phone in your pocket. You can record things, you can document things. It's not difficult. Brats. All right. So in the Washington Post, this was at 9 a.m. yesterday. So 24 hours when I found it. Oh, this is by Kim Bellware and Annabelle Timsit. So a couple of women wrote this. Now I will be reacting to it as I have not read it. We are going to read it together. And I am going to try very hard not to have neurological symptoms. If you're new here, I have multiple sclerosis and sometimes I get angry and the neuro symptoms pop up. So, women fear Republicans will move to overturn no-fault divorce laws. Trump's win has sparked worries on social media about another rollback of women's rights, but the president-elect can do little to impact state divorce laws. It won't matter. They're still going to panic. And yeah, it started state by state, like dominoes. So if it gets undone, it'll go state by state. We all know California that started it with Ronald Reagan in 1969. They're not rolling back anything. Anyway, Susan Guthrie first noticed attacks on no-fault divorce gaining traction among conservative commentators in spring of 2023, recalling when right-wing YouTuber Steven Crowder went into a rage over the Texas no-fault divorce law that allowed his wife to leave him against his wishes. Since then, Guthrie, a family law and mediation attorney who hosts the popular Divorce and Beyond podcast, has heard growing attacks on no-fault divorce from conservatives. She focused on the issue in her Monday episode, just before the simmering fears among some women exploded into view on Election Day. In the hours after former President Donald Trump won a presidential election that heavily focused on women's rights, women began turning to social media to vent their frustration and worries about another rollback of women's rights in a country that had taken a rightward shift. His campaign did not focus on women's rights at all. His campaign focused on no new wars, ending wars that are going on, and the economy. But nice try. That's what the left tried to turn it into, and it failed miserably. Google searches for no-fault divorce surged, particularly in red states like Mississippi, Missouri, and South Dakota, while popular TikTok users urged people who were considering ending their marriage to act fast. Quote, "If you're unhappy in your marriage, now might be the time to act," end quote, Leah Marie, a divorce coach, said in a TikTok video that has been viewed more than 780,000 times since Wednesday. Protect your right to choose what is best for you and your kids before it's taken away, end quote. Why are they her kids all the time? Like maybe, okay, she added. Kids being taken away from their fathers is not good for them. Okay. No-fault divorce can make ending a marriage more accessible for a spouse who has fewer resources or who is being abused or controlled by a partner. That is, they'll claim abuse if it's like, oh my gosh, he looked at me. Oh my gosh, he was a little disappointed that all I did was sit on the couch all day. According to a widely cited 2022 study by the American Sociological Association, nearly 70% of divorces are initiated by women. Well, at least they're admitting it now. Quote, "Though many people don't realize it, the effort to end no-fault divorce has a disproportionate effect on women." Guthrie said, "I think we need to pay attention to it because a lot of things we didn't think would happen, like Roe being overturned, did happen. The voices are going to get louder with the results of this election." Good. It's funny because they get cash and prizes, right? But they can't manage their money. It's so funny because by and large, how can they say that it affects women worse financially when they get the cash and prizes, right? And men are, relegated to be homeless. She's living in the house that they had together. She's living in the marital home. He's got some apartment somewhere. Reality is hard, you guys. Truth, they are allergic to truth. A state issue with national overtones. The movement to end no-fault divorce has not been a Republican priority at the national level or on the campaign trail. Trump, who has been married 3 times and divorced twice, has not publicly spoken about it, though Vice President-elect J.D. Vance said in a 2021 speech unearthed earlier this year that people divorce too easily, shifting, quote, spouses like they change their underwear. I agree with him on that. I'm not a fan that Trump has been divorced twice and then now he's on his 3rd marriage. However, he has been married to her since 2005. People change. I don't know his heart, and it's not for me to know. What I look at is actions and results. And by the way, let me just take a pause because a certain doggy has jumped off camera, but she's over there. Let's see if we can. I know you guys are going to be like, show us Lola. There she is. Yeah. There she is. So please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this show with your favorite feminist. Lola reminds me to say that because I often forget. I'm too focused on what we're working on that I don't remember that. Oh yeah, I should probably promote this. Ah, golly. Okay. Legal scholars said concerns over losing no-fault divorce are not unfounded, citing the widespread confidence women once had about federally protected schmortion rights before they were struck down in 2022. I should say fetus deletus. Sorry. Before they were struck down in 2022 by the U.S. Supreme Court, whose conservative majority was solidified in Trump's first term. I love how they word that. It's struck down. It was sent back to the states. It was bad law. But experts were clear that from a practical standpoint, changes to divorce law would take place at the state level. As they always have. That's how no-fault divorce came in. While there is a constitutional right to marry, there is no constitutional right to divorce, which means divorce laws will never come before a federal court, said Margaret Risner, a visiting professor at Brooklyn Law School and editor emeritus of the Family Law blog. Quote, the state legislatures can write or amend the divorce laws like they would any other state law, Risner said. Quote, the good news is that no federal election or presidential election can impact that directly because there's no federal constitutional issue. Reagan and the rise of no-fault divorce. Here we go. Until Republican California Governor Ronald Reagan made his state the first state to enact no-fault divorce in 1970, every state required the fault of either husband or wife to be established before divorce would be granted. States designated specific grounds that would qualify for a divorce, like infidelity, extreme cruelty, abandonment, or incarceration. May I add that those are biblical. Those are like reasons that would be biblical. Reagan, a divorcee himself, signed California's no-fault divorce law, saying it would, quote, do much to remove the sideshow elements of many divorce cases. Whatever. Fault-based divorce was often lengthy, expensive, and acrimonious, and clogged family courts with bitter divorce cases that would drag on for years. Well, this still happens. And divorce shouldn't be easy, for heaven's sakes. Quote, before no fault, it's not as if no one was divorcing. It was just a more tedious process, Risner said. Quote, it was more difficult on the courts and on the couples, proving someone was insane or impotent. No. Fault-only divorce leads to logistical issues that aren't necessary. Since 2010, all states have permitted no-fault divorce, though the processes, timeframes, and requirements differ. Incompatibility or irreconcilable differences are common reasons cited in divorce cases. In the vast majority of cases, both parties do not have to agree for a marriage to be ended. Women's rights advocates say that no-fault divorce is also a lifeline for those stuck in abusive relationships, which disproportionately affect women. No. Who would otherwise have to go through a costly, emotionally draining, and potentially dangerous process of proving their partner's abuse in court to obtain a divorce. Okay, this is where my attitude is coming from. While I understand there are some bad men, this attempts to paint all men with that same brushstroke, and it is infuriating to me for them to say that, oh my gosh, poor women, because every time you say that women are so abused or women suffer, you are saying that men are bad. Men are bad, men are bad, men are bad. And it's just too broad. They're making it sound like it's so common that most men are like this. And I will say it again. This is why the women were saying, I choose a bear in the woods rather than a man. Because this is the type of propaganda that makes women think that man bad, woman good. Man villain, woman victim. And it's just wrong. It's just wrong. You don't see women walking around with black eyes. You just don't. Sick and tired of it. A 2003 paper published by the National Bureau of Economic Research showed that female ending themselves declined by around 20% in the long run in states that adopted no-fault divorce, and that those states also recorded, quote, large declines in domestic violence committed by and against both men and women, end quote. Just because it's not being reported, I'm sorry, I would need to see their statistics, because I just don't believe their premise. And I don't trust them. Red states consider a rollback. Religious conservatives and men's rights activists have been among the most vocal opponents of no-fault divorce, arguing that it contributes to weakening the institution of marriage, deprives children of the benefits of a two-parent household, and unfairly favors women in financial and custodial settlements. Yes, yes, yes. Amen to that. Amen to that. Marcia A. Zug, who teaches family law at the Rice School of Law at the University of South Carolina, said the shifting political winds indicate efforts to end no-fault divorce, quote, are absolutely on the table. Quote, this is easier to get rid of than fetus deletus rights, Zug said. Obviously, the biggest indication is if state legislatures start proposing it. 5 years ago, no one was. Though no state has come close to rolling back no-fault divorce, several states with Republican supermajorities in their legislatures have seen bills introduced or a tax on no-fault divorce as part of state GOP party platforms. The Nebraska GOP platform states that no-fault divorce, quote, should be limited to situations in which the couple has no children of the marriage. Yeah, now there you go. Because it's hurting the kids so much. It's hurting the men too. It's hurting the kids. They are actually the biggest victims of divorce. I'm sick and tired of when I was a kid. It's like, oh, children are resilient. No. It's like, stop it. They have no choice. What does that even mean? You can traumatize them and not feel guilty? Ah. Okay, so what did I just read that made me lose my mind? Okay. That no-fault divorce should be limited to situations in which the couple has no children of the marriage, end quote. While the Texas GOP says the legislature should, quote, rescind unilateral no-fault divorce laws. In Louisiana, the Republican State Central Committee last year considered a resolution to do away with no-fault divorce. An Oklahoma lawmaker introduced a bill in January to eliminate the option of no-fault divorce, while a South Dakota lawmaker has repeatedly tried since 2020 to remove irreconcilable differences as grounds for divorce. Well, this is all very good news. Maybe we can get more momentum. These ding-dong women bringing up the topic, I think, is only going to help. Because the chicks we saw at the beginning of this video, I don't think they're helping their case. I mean, there's going to be some fringe, but this, you know what? The men have spoken, and maybe now you guys are like, hey, wait a second, we can be heard. Thus far, the bills have gained little traction. The latest bill, sponsored by State Representative Tony Randolph, was ended by South Dakota's House Judiciary Committee in February by an 11-2 vote. Randolph did not respond to the Washington Post's request for comment Thursday on whether he would introduce another bill next session. If a state were to eliminate no-fault divorce, Zug said, there would probably be more unnecessary fraud as couples create actionable grounds for divorce, more money spent on private investigators to collect evidence of wrongdoing, and more splits where the needless acrimony negatively affects a divorcing couple's children. No, I'm sorry. No, still end it. Yeah, there's going to be people who try to cheat it and but guess what? The women are lying now to get custody, to get free lawyers. They're lying now. If they're going to lie, you might as well take more, power away from them from what they're going to get. They're going to lie regardless. Liars are going to lie. That's why you come to the channel, to have big, profound statements like a liar's gonna lie, but they are, and women are gonna women. There are all sorts of problems that come from a fault-only system, Zug said. Zug said attitudes towards protecting no-fault divorce laws can mirror those on fetus deletus rights. General indifference towards something people assume they themselves will never need to access. Zug likes to have her law students read the 1993 study, When Every Relationship is Above Average, where people applying for marriage licenses were surveyed for their knowledge of divorce statistics, as well as their perceptions of their own relationship. Even among respondents who knew the divorce rate, most assumed their own marriage would never fail. See, this college is indoctrination. It is like the highest indoctrination camp that you can go to. All government schools, from government preschool all the way through K through 12 and into college. If you're in that system, you are being indoctrinated. You are being brainwashed. She's a law professor, and there's always an angle. There's always an angle that you can present information in, and you can make it seem like you're not presenting it in a certain angle, especially to soft-minded college students. And they think they're getting, like they're learning. They don't realize they're learning to think a certain way. Quote, when you have that kind of disconnect, people might not be as upset initially about getting rid of no-fault divorce because they think they won't need it, Zug said. Quote, people may not realize how difficult fault-based divorces are. Well, just like I said, you can present information any which way. The Washington Post is a great example. You've got the Washington Post that is obviously left-leaning, and then you've got two women writing the article, and they're journalists. They're going to be left-leaning, and then you've got them quoting law professors who are left-leaning, all making it seem like, hey, these are facts. This is the truth. And it's not. Divorce, as long as, now this is extreme, but as long as divorce exists at all, marriage does not. If you can get out, then the vows, if the vows are conditional, if there are caveats, then they're not vows. And if you don't like that, don't make a vow. It's just how it is. And these women freak out like, but what if I'm not happy? Do you think that you're supposed to be happy every single day of your life, no matter what's going on? And do you think if you're unhappy, it's someone else's fault? No. It's such an extreme point of view. But I will say, if I were married, if I was being physically harmed, obviously I would get out of that situation and I would just get away, right? But I wouldn't seek a divorce. I would just get out of harm's way because I made the vow. Anyway, other than that, I'm sticking it out. Ride or die means ride or die. People go through stuff. It's insane how many women leave men who have served. And we've got Veterans Day coming up tomorrow. So many men come home from serving the country and they come home to wives who are bitter, resentful, who have cheated because they've been away, who don't understand that it's a transition and it's difficult. And these men realize that the brotherhood that they experienced when they were serving, that love is far stronger and far more real than what they've got going on at home. And it's so painful, but it's a great example of the state of marriage in our world. And women, just by and large, are the ones that are not taking it seriously. And women, if you don't like it, don't get married. You don't get to have it both ways. You don't. And the men weren't put on this earth to serve you and to make you happy. This is not Disney. Disney is a lie. It's a lie. They took the fairy tales and they twisted them, and they got rid of all of the real goodness and they twisted them into some dream for women where all is well and life is perfect and women are innocent and men are put on this planet to save them and rescue them and fulfill them. It's not how it works. Just want to look at women and be like, you're not a princess, okay? Oh my gosh, you guys, thank you for joining me on this one. This is definitely one we got to keep our eye on. Things are moving in the right direction for men, and what happens at the top will like trickle down to the dating scene and all the rest of it. And I want things to get better for you guys. I do. I want a lot of these women to wake up. And the more these crazy witches are on there talking, the more other women will wake up. And I'm keeping my eye on those Gen Z chicks who are conservative. My hope is in them, that they don't want just like housewife soft life, but they actually want to serve their families, serve sacrificially, you know? Anyway, I hope that you are feeding your souls today on Sunday. We will have fairy tale later. Don't think that this is this is not instead, this is additional. So we will have fairy tale later at 8 o'clock. So join us for that. There's always so much truth in there, so much more than a fairy tale. This is life instruction. This is truth told through, fantastical ways, but truth that they want to hide from us. So join us for that. And in the meantime, protect your peace, feed your souls, and I will see you later on tonight. Love you guys. Bye.